This is a great question. And just for those who may be listening who aren't necessarily familiar, so you can have a situation where, and when we say reinspection, it doesn't necessarily mean a new appraisal. It means to have a final inspection done or to have a reinspection so the appraiser comes back out to confirm that some sort of work that's been needed on the property has been completed, or that something that's been identified as being deficient in the original appraisal report has been corrected. So what are the common reasons on those?
So Jason, let me ask you this. All right, you've been a branch manager for quite some time. You've got a great reputation. You've done a lot in this industry. And what goes through your mind, okay, when you need a reinspection, a final, you get the appraisal in, and you're finally, you're thinking touchdown, right? Like you're thinking, all right, and then you think, oh man, there's something else that needs to be done, right? Because a lot of times, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of times, you get the loan application, the borrower is ready to go, they get the house ready to buy, or they're ready to refinance. You're looking at, okay, value, condition, is it as is or subject to, what needs to be repaired, what the value come in at, so that you need to renegotiate the contract. And, as a branch manager speaking, what goes through your head when you have a situation that comes up like that?
I would say the first thing that goes through my head is, why didn't first thing is that I'm going to have to cover this $150 reinspection fee because I didn't disclose it to the borrower, so now I'm stuck with a $150 fee. And the second thing that goes through my mind is, why didn't someone tell me that there was these issues that may cause the appraisal to need a reinspection, possibly miss our closing, and cost someone unexpected money that they weren't planning on paying, especially on a tight deal where every penny matters to the client and to me to get the deal done. Why didn't someone tell me that there wasn't a board across the back door that led out to a 10-foot drop? Why wasn't there that safety board on there? That could have been addressed beforehand. So that's one of the first two things that really go through my mind.
So you think to yourself, man, because you want to be proactive, right? Like your whole game is, how do I get ahead of the issue, right?
And that's why we're having the discussion now. So to kind of bring it back into the question of what are the common reasons an appraisal needs an inspection. So that's a great question to ask, because obviously the part that's frustrating for Jason and for any originator, probably for any homeowner, is that they may not be aware that that's something that would require a reinspection. Okay,
correct.
If they knew that up front, they would address it so it didn't become an issue later on. And I think that's the reason we have this question. And I will say this now: the first thing is, it depends on your loan program type, obviously, because if you're looking at if it's an FHA program, it's going to be much more restrictive, obviously, than on a conventional. Conventional, they'll let go almost anything, not everything, but almost anything. But on FHA, it's going to be a lot more tight. Now, on FHA, primarily, something with that property causes it to fail to meet the 4000.1 standard. That's the main thing that you're going to see, right? So that, and then anything else that's a health and safety issue. And health and safety is going to apply for either or. It's going to apply for conventional or FHA. So to your point, Jason, if you have, okay, let's say you have a deck in the backyard, it's higher than 18 inches and there's no rail on it, it's going to require repair and then a reinspect. Okay, if you've got some sort of reverse grading, or it looks like you may have water intrusion or water damage to the foundation or to the property itself, that's going to require a reinspection. Anything that's going to require remediation will then require a reinspection because they have to confirm that it's been completed. Now, the most common ones, okay, and this is something that should always be discussed, particularly on a purchase file. This has to be discussed with the realtor. You got to make sure the water's on. You got to make sure the utilities are working. Make sure that the appliances, if they're conveyed, that those are all functioning as well, right? Check to make sure all the switch covers are in place, light switch covers, okay? That's a small one, but they're going to hit you for it unless, okay? And because it's very relevant for where we are, the state of Maryland, you've got to be very cognizant of the new smoke detector law. Because, you know, if that's going to be the one that's going to trip up the most folks, at least in Maryland for now, until we all kind of get used to that, because the way the law is written, the requirements depend on when the property was constructed. And the most restrictive requirements are for new construction properties. And what you don't want to do is have a situation where you've got a previously constructed property and the appraiser is trying to apply a new construction standard to it, because it's too high. It's too high of a restriction and it's not accurate. So those are some of the real common ones that we see, but the most common ones that will drive you the most insane, because they're the easiest ones to avoid. You know, if you've got chipping paint or peeling paint or a hole in the floor or something, you kind of can't get around that. That's going to require a repair. But you can make sure the utilities are on. You can make sure that, you know, the water's on, all that stuff. Because, again, if it's not on at the time of the original inspection, the appraiser has to go back out to confirm it. It's not their job to ask ahead of time.
Yeah. Now,
right?
So Jason,
so that would be the first. That's the primary one.
To Fritz's point, right? So I'm an appraiser by trade, right? So you know, welcome, right? You know, as an appraiser by trade, so you go out to a property, right? And so this is where it kind of becomes a little difficult, right? Because some guys, so some people have this sort of like, you go out there and you really don't know what you're getting into 100%. Meaning you talk to the bar a little bit about, you know, obviously, you know, the condition of the property. You do a little online research. But to anyone, you know, no baby's ugly. So they're going to...
It's not true. There's some real ugly
babies.
I know
that. Well, there you go. No baby's ugly. So no one's going to ever say anything negative.
Sorry.
And
you got an ugly baby. You know it. And, can't help you there, man.
Right. And you don't necessarily 100% know. And so you run into a situation where, you know, you're kind of walking in blind at some level, and you're just reporting, you're almost reporting the news, right? Like, oh, there's vinyl siding, you know, concrete driveway, is 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bath with a finished basement and a big hole in the wall and lead-based paint, you know, chips, right? And so, you know, a lot of times, you know, we're just as surprised as the
delicious lead chips.
The mortgage company or the realtor, and then things like with FHA inspections and stuff like that. I mean, it becomes more difficult. So as a lender, do you do anything, or and I'm sure you do, but I mean, do you do anything to try to get intel from the borrower beforehand?
I mean, especially on a refinance, I mean, I'm asking them a ton of questions about the property and the shape of it, and if there's holes in it, and have they started any projects and left the ladder out in the backyard. You know, that's your favorite one, where you got a bunch of construction tools in the backyard, and you guys take a picture of it and want to know an explanation of it. So yeah, I mean, we're prepping them, but it seems, you know, a lot of times they're saying everything's good before they listen. You know, they kind of exclude that, but we're definitely prepping them to make it. I mean, being proactive is the #1 thing to help out with an appraisal, and we don't have that many issues that pop up just because we prepare beforehand. But yeah, I think the peeling paint is a big one. Maybe they don't even know that it's peeling, you know, because it's not very often you just walk around your house, you know. So I think the peeling paint's huge.
Yeah, and a lot of times, so FHA has a safety, soundness, security type philosophy where they make sure things are safe, secure, and sound. And I always used to tell people common sense method approach. If you had 15 5-year-olds at a birthday party, what would you lock up and fix before they got there, right? You know what I mean? You know, 15 5-year-old boys at a birthday party. You know, what doors would you close? What broken window panes would you fix? You know, what chipping paint would you repair? You know, you need to have everything in working functional order. I would call Chuck E. Cheese personally. You would call Chuck E. Cheese. There you go.
That would be that. But no, but I get what you're saying, and it's a good way to make the point. And I think I just want to thank Jason, actually. I know this may sound a little odd, but, you know, it really actually is very helpful to the appraiser and to the AMC when you're taking a proactive approach like that, to have that conversation, because the reality is, and we all know this, is that people are in love with their own home. It's always going to be perfect to them.
Correct.
Okay, even though out in the open, you know, we're not looking at this house in that way. So when you're having an appraisal done, it's a collateral evaluation, and it's a very unemotional process about something that people are very emotional about.
Correct.
And so anytime you can prep them in advance, because, you know, it's one thing if you don't have the conversation and then the borrower is upset that, hey, you know, why do I have to pay, you know, another $150 to have this guy come back out just because I have a giant hole in my roof, right?
Correct.
Okay. It's a whole different conversation when the originator can say, well, I specifically asked you if you had any literal holes in the house that we had to be aware of prior to. So if you don't give me the information, you know, you're not putting me in a good position to help you.
Now, Jason, I'm sure you coach. I'm sure you coach your LOs, right, to do that. But I mean, that's still difficult, because even as the appraiser, there's sometimes where, I mean, you don't even, you know, people just don't know what's wrong. Like, people don't know what's wrong with their house, and or don't always know what somebody's looking for, right? Because they live there, right?
Right,
you know,
but you have to ask the question, right? You have to ask the question. Now, if you don't get the sufficient answer, that's a different, that's a whole different ball of wax, right?
Yeah. So let's go into the next question. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
So let's go into.
I was gonna say it's a purchase market now, so you got a lot of times you got to ask the listing agent because they've been to the property. You know, the buyer may have only been there once, and they were so excited about the big kitchen.
That's right.